Welcome, Sam Knight here on another edition of the Sooner Pocket Podcast. Check out www.soonerpocket.com. A lot of good pregame and postgame content there, some cool analysis, and links to some videos, as well as the YouTube channel that Chris runs for us. Good site, lots of good information. Chris, OU broke their losing streak, coming out of the game against Maine, 59-14. Your biggest takeaway was what?
My biggest takeaway is that Jackson Arnold has an arm. He has a darn good one at that. It doesn't really matter who the opponent is. If you can, off of 1 foot, heave it 50 yards downfield and hit a receiver in stride, that's a pretty impressive throw. And I can't remember who the famous basketball coach who said this, but he said sometimes you just need to watch the ball go through the hoop. If you're going through a dry spell, you just need to watch the ball go through the hoop. And I think that's what OU did against Maine. We hadn't won a game since September, which is sad to say. Went the entire month of October without a win, but we got a win. It was just against FCS Maine, but we got a win. And now we're 2.5 point favorites against Missouri on their home field. So I think the rhythm got back there. Jalil Farouk, high chance that he's coming back this week and he'll be able to maintain his red shirt even if he plays the rest of the season. I'm feeling good. What was the main thing that you really took away from the game against Maine?
Before I get there, I will say Jalil Farouk is questionable on the injury report, which, based on the weeks of injury reports we have to this point, questionable and out are interchangeable. My prediction would be that Farouk is not back for this week. Neither is Burks, probably, but we can hope. We need a little bit of hope. I thought it was a good showing. Not gonna lie, the first two series, first one for our offense and first one for our defense, I was sitting there watching that, and I thought we are really about to hit a low point. We're gonna lose to Maine in our own stadium.
That would have been
Um,
bad.
yeah, so it didn't start well. Fortunately, we corrected that pretty quick. Um, Ended up really putting some points on them, some nice offense, and we got to get Michael Hawkins in there um, because we wanted to, because we wanted to get him some reps, not because we needed to. So it was nice to be able to get him in there that way. Overall, great week of college football. I thought OU beating Maine 59-14. Georgia coming out of a tight one against Florida. I say a tight one. It was tight till about 5 minutes left in the game. Georgia ended up winning 34-20 in that one. Iowa State and Clemson, both the number 11 teams in the country last week, per the AP poll, both of them lost. Texas Tech beat Iowa State. Iowa State was at that time one of 7 remaining unbeaten schools. So they went down. That's Texas Tech, I feel like, is always playing some kind of chaotic agent role in the Big 12 when it comes to their
Every year.
postseason. Yeah. Louisville beat Clemson 33-21. That game was not as close as the score might indicate. Clemson really got handled in that one, as did Texas A&M. Number 10, Texas A&M, dropping like a fly out of spaghetti to South Carolina, 44-20.
What?
You ever seen a fly in your spaghetti?
I can't say that I have. No.
Exactly. Exactly. 44-20, South Carolina over Texas A&M. It makes that loss against them a little more palatable, I guess. Still rough to have thrown 3 interceptions in a row to start the game against South Carolina, but it's academic now. So what are you going to do? Last night we had the one of the most important releases, most important historical events in a long time. Oregon is number 1 in the college football playoff poll, the inaugural one for 2024. Your thoughts on that? Was there another team that deserved to be number 1?
No, I think at this point Oregon has done the most to earn it. They've played against one of the teams who's in the top five, Ohio State, and they beat Ohio State. They had a couple slow starts at the beginning of the year to teams in Idaho, mainly Idaho and Boise State, but they've rebounded nicely. They went up against a Michigan team that's proven to not go down easily, and they handled them. They went up against a ranked Illinois squad and showed that Illinois had no business being ranked. I mean, they're dominating all these games. They're going, and the one game that they played against a top tier opponent, they won. And they won it. I don't want to say convincingly, but they earned the win. It's not like they were behind for most of the game and a series of bad plays let them back in. They were with them the whole time. Uh, that combined with being undefeated in this year's Big Ten, that's pretty impressive. Uh, so no, I don't think that there's anyone who deserved it more. I know that there was a debate going on about who the best one-loss team is because there were a lot of one-loss teams in that top 11, and what made me laugh is that there were a lot of people saying they're mainly Texas fans saying, well, Texas is clearly the best one-loss team. And I feel like they're forgetting that they got spanked by Georgia at home, who is also a one-loss team. And so I think that should put that to bed. I tell you what really threw me
Hold
off,
on, hold on. Who is the best one loss team? Out of curiosity, if it's not Texas, who is it?
Georgia, without a doubt, Georgia. Uh, just look at the two of them who won the head to head. Georgia didn't just win; they kind of spanked Texas in Austin on a neutral field or in Athens. I think Georgia probably would have won by 4 or 5 scores, seeing how that game played out in Austin. Uh, Texas just had no idea what to do. They weren't ready for that level of physicality. They weren't ready for that talented of a defense. Uh, but uh, but I tell you what really threw me was Alabama. Two lost Alabama who lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee. They're in the top 11, meaning all they have to do at this point is win out. If you are in the top 11 at the end of the season, you're in the playoffs. I'm not saying the top 12 because if the fifth highest ranked conference champion is ranked lower than 12, then they'll get the 12 seed. But then everything after that, if you're in the top 11, then yeah, you've got it. And so seeing that Alabama was in the top 11, that really surprised me. But you know, one other thing, we're in the SEC now, so we get to say this. You ready? You ready?
I don't know.
We've lost, our 4 losses have been to, according to the latest college football playoff poll, the number 5 team,
You're not about to drop quality losses on me, are you?
the number 17, the
Oh
number
boy.
16 team, and a South Carolina team that just walloped Texas A&M. We've got quality losses.
I think those four quality losses compared to number nine BYU's zero quality losses, that probably puts us in line for like number eight, number seven in the playoff poll. You know who's ranked in this poll that I just don't think has any business in it, and we've seen it a couple times now, is Missouri. I
Yeah.
do not understand the Missouri fetish that so many of these polls have right now. Um, they snuck their way back into the latest AP poll, and then the playoff poll ranked them. Um, and I just don't get it. They almost lost to Boston College, almost lost to Vanderbilt. Um, they've lost two other games. They lost to Texas A&M. I'm not sure who the other loss was to. Um, but it's it's really surprising to me that they're ranked, and especially given what the committee did to Florida State last year with the injury to Jordan Travis. They showed that injuries make a difference, and Missouri doesn't have too long of an injury report right now, but their starting quarterback is hurt. He got hurt. I think it was his hand, if I'm not mistaken, that got hurt last week in their game. So I don't fully understand Missouri being ranked. That's one I just haven't been able to make sense of.
I don't get that either. Uh, and look at they've played 3 games against teams who were ranked when they played them. they beat Boston College 27-21, but it's Boston College. Boston College, who at this point in the year is let's see here. What is their record right now? Are they like 6-3, 5 and oh no, they're 4-4. So they beat a 4-4 squad by one score. They then went up against at the time number 25 Texas A&M and lost 41-10. 41-10. And then a few weeks later, they go up against who at the time was number 15 Alabama and got blanked 34 to nothing. So in the two conference games they've played against ranked teams, they've been outscored 71 to 10. Overall, in these ranked games, they've been outscored, let's see here, 98 to 31 against ranked teams this year. That's terrible. And don't forget, they just barely beat Vanderbilt. I think they are very easily one of the most overrated teams in the country. And one other thing that's really playing against them, their quarterback situation, like you mentioned, Brady Cook, and I can't even remember the name of their backup. I'll see if I can find it real quick. But Brady
Drew
Cook,
Pine.
him, Brady Cook and Drew Pine, they are like 2022 Dylan Gabriel and Davis Bevel. Dylan Gabriel was the lifeblood of our offense. When he wasn't on the field, I think our offense the entire season when Dylan Gabriel wasn't on the field scored 20 points. And that was across like 3 or 4 games, including like mop up duty in some games. 24 points when he wasn't on the field. The first game he came back after we lost to Texas that year, he hung half a hundred up. So there was a very clear discrepancy and or discrepancy. There was a very clear distance between number one quarterback way down here, number two quarterback. It's the same thing at Missouri. Brady Cook, and he's by the way, he's questionable. He is on the injury report as questionable this week. And Oklahoma's got a mean defense. They will make him pay for that. Uh, I think that I think if we go up against Drew Pine, then we have a really good chance of beating him. But that's something that the committee, I don't think, seems to care about. We've seen how Florida State is this year with the squad that played at the end of last year. They're 1-8. And Missouri, they've shown nothing to prove, in my opinion, that they are in that top 25 of teams. And so I also didn't understand why they got the rank, but it was encouraging to see Army get ranked. They're undefeated. They've earned it.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what happens postseason wise for them. Um, Looking ahead to our game Saturday, 6:45 SEC Network against Missouri, coming to you live from Columbia. Um, our defense, I think, in this one, we've got to go pressure packages early. Knowing that their starting quarterback is hurt, if he falls on the positive side of questionable and ends up playing, you've got a quarterback who's gimpy back there a little bit, already has an injury. Um, you fire off some extra pressure at him, bring someone up into the box there, and really force him to find Luther Burden or throw that ball away. Hit him, make contact with that quarterback every time you're back there. And if we've got the backup in there, even better. Same thing, blitz him into the fiery pits of hell. Um, Send him wherever, but don't give those boys any time to throw. Luther Burden is a heck of a dude, heck of a wide receiver. Um, Very significant to that offense and a key part of their game. And if Luther Burden is able to be found without much pressure on the quarterback, OU's defense is going to get stretched a little bit. So hoping that we can limit the damage there. But that's what I'm going to be looking for from our defense. For our offense, just the ability to move the ball consistently. And I would say on top of just moving the ball consistently, drive in and drive out. It's not to say you're scoring every drive. That'd be nice. But just to say that we're getting good, solid movement into enemy territory most drives. Um, if we can walk out of there doing that and having, say, 2 explosive plays, in the whole game on offense. I think this is a game we walk out of with a win.
Yeah, I can see all that. Uh, Something that I'm going to be looking for defensively. So it's kind of along the same theme, like the same result, but a different way of getting there. I want to see us get pressure on the quarterback as well. But the thing is, do you know who Missouri's leading wide receiver is right now? I'll tell you right now, it is not Luther Burden. He's technically number two. Former Oklahoma five-star wide receiver Theo Weiss is currently, in terms of yardage, the number one receiver on the team. Touchdowns, it is Luther Burden. Missouri, they've only thrown 7 touchdown passes this year. So that's interesting. But Theo Weiss, he has 32 more yards than Luther Burden on 3 fewer catches. He's averaging 2 yards a catch more, and his longest catch of the year was 15 yards longer than Luther Burden's. Theo Weiss is playing really good ball. And then when Theo Weiss is covered up, they've got Luther Burden, who's proven that he's one of the best wide receivers in college football, probably the number one wide receiver taken in the draft this coming year. And so I really want to see us put an emphasis on coverage. Our defensive line, we've seen that we have a really good line when it comes to getting to the quarterback, especially Trace Ford. He's not getting the sacks, but he's getting the pressure, which is allowing some of the others to get sacks. Like our Mason Thomas, he's been doing a great job of getting after the quarterback, and we're doing it with 4-man rushes. We've got an elite defensive line. What our main struggle has been all year defensively has been our secondary. They've been good. They have not been near as good as our run defense or our defensive line. So I would love to see us put a big emphasis on how we are covering Luther Burden and Theo Weiss and those other pass catchers because Brady Cook, he is a good quarterback. I don't think he'll ever be a starter in the NFL, but I think he is going to go to the NFL at some point. I think he's got a career backup job lined up for him somewhere in the NFL, and I think that he can be really dangerous. And I think we have the defensive line to easily dominate their offensive line. And so when it comes to the defense, I'd like to see the same thing. I'd like to see consistent pressure on the quarterback, just with maybe 4, no more than 5-man pressures consistently, so we can put that extra emphasis in the secondary. When it comes to the offense, we've really found success with the ground game. Against Ole Miss, who has one of the best defenses in the country, we ran all over them. We ran the ball incredibly well against Ole Miss. And then last week, Javante Barnes has a career game against Maine. Granted, it's Maine, but still, best game of his career to this point in terms of yardage. So Javante Barnes really has a lot of rhythm, and our offensive line against both an inferior opponent and an SEC opponent who has a really good defense, our offensive line in terms of run blocking has finally figured something out. And so I'd like to see us dominate on the ground because if we can dominate on the ground, then Missouri is going to start trying to defend the ground, which if Jalil Farouk is back, if Deion Burks is back, that will open lanes up for them. If we finally start using Jaquez Petaway, which I don't know why we haven't been, but if we start using him, he'll be open on these slants. Brennan Thompson, he'll be able to get open deep downfield because they're pulling a safety in for run support. I The main thing I want to see is just an established ground game to where we know whether we're giving it to Javante Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, Taylor Tatum, we know that they're getting 3, 4 yards, maybe 5 yards a carry. Just please no option pitches to Sam Franklin.
I hope the run game works out as well as it did against Maine, because the Ole
Oh,
Miss game,
yes.
we got, without having the stats right in front of me, I would venture that we got 75 to 80% of our rushing yards in that Ole Miss game in the first half. Um, Pretty well got shut down on all fronts offensively in the second half, um, in that one. So my hope is that we actually took something from that first half that we maybe improved a little bit against Maine to last throughout the course of the game. And maybe that's something we can use against Missouri. I don't put too much stock into our offensive performance against Maine. It was good to see, mainly a confidence builder, but I'm interested to see how it'll look against an actual defense. far as a score prediction for this game, I've got OU hitting the end zone twice, and Tyler Keltner or Zach Schmidt, whichever one's kicking this week. Um, I've got their leg getting a workout, 4 field goals. I see us winning this ball game 26-24.
I could see that. Uh, I think it's going to come down to our defense. I think our offense is going to get a few scores. Missouri, they don't have a great defense, but they're good enough to really cause problems, especially with how bad our offense has been. Uh, so I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. I've got a final score of 20-16. I think we're gonna I think Missouri's gonna get down the field a lot, but we're not gonna let them in the end zone more than once. I think we're going to get a couple touchdowns, but I think we are going to have to rely on Zach Schmidt, which he's been great this year. I don't think he's missed yet. It's just been Tyler Keltner who's missed. So really nice to see him rebound from the season he had last year. I've got 20-16 Oklahoma winning and hopefully shutting up some of that Missouri fan base who seems to think they've earned the right to talk crap to OU. I mean, the rivalry is almost as lopsided as Bedlam is.
And right now, to be honest with you, I don't think there's any school in the country that doesn't have the right to talk crap to OU with the kind of season we've had. I just, I would much rather just do our talking on the field at this point because the talking that's come from our fan base has just not, it's not helped our cause this year. So looking forward to that. Looking across the rest of the week 11 slate, some good games, some teams that are favored on the road in tough environments. Georgia, 2.5 point favorite at Ole Miss. I like Georgia to cover that. Clemson going on the road to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, obviously not a great team right now, but Clemson's not what I would call elite either. And those Virginia Tech home game environments, those are known to be a little crazy sometimes. Anything can really happen there. Clemson's seen that before. Clemson favorite at 6.5. Colorado, right now, one of the leaders for the Big 12, walking into Lubbock, facing the same sort of situation that Iowa State faced last week against Texas Tech. Colorado favored right now by 3.5. Wouldn't be surprised to see Texas Tech pull that one out, cause a little more chaos there. Two more games real quick. LSU hosting Alabama. Bama a 3 point favorite. Um, I'm feeling the upset there. I think Alabama goes to 3 losses and falls out of the playoff race anyway. This one I think is an elimination game. Whichever team wins this one will still have a shot at the playoff, and the loser is done. And looking forward to some New Year's Six action. And last one, the Holy War, BYU and Utah. BYU undefeated right now, number 9 team in the country, favored by 3.5 at Utah. Utah has no offense, none at all. BYU is going to shut them down, and I think probably win by a lot more than 3.5.
Yeah, that's the easiest spread to bet against or to bet on, I should say. That is the easiest spread of this entire week. I'd tell you a couple games I'd watch out for. Well, first, when it comes to Alabama versus LSU, I think it's just going to depend on which teams show up because we've seen two versions of both teams. We've seen the LSU team that can go down and beat Ole Miss on a last second drive. We've seen the LSU team that can go out and win a lot of these games dominantly. We also saw the LSU team that lost to USC in week 1. We've seen how USC has played this year. That USC team who is now benched Miller Moss is now that USC team beat LSU. And also don't forget how LSU got manhandled against Texas A&M. On top of that, you've got Alabama, who played one of the best regular season games I've ever watched against Georgia. And I mean, that was just spectacular television right there. And then lost to Vanderbilt the next week. And I,
And
there's no
almost lost to
cons.
South Carolina right after
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Which is another thing that makes South Carolina a quality loss. But but I think there's no consistency from either team, and it's just It's just going to depend on which team shows up. Is it going to be the Alabama team that lost to Vanderbilt versus the LSU team that lost to USC? What's it going to be? I don't know. But I'm hoping it's a good game. Texas Tech, I could very easily see beating Colorado, but Colorado, I'd look for them to have a bounce back. I kind of hate to admit it, but they're really looking nice this year. They're really doing a good job. Uh, across some of the other slates, uh, I think Texas is going to win this one, but I think Florida is going to cover the spread. Texas is a 21.5 point favorite. Florida has got a really good defense. Their offense isn't great, and DJ Lagway is apparently a game time decision. I'm a firm believer that if DJ Lagway hadn't gone down against Georgia, uh, Florida would probably end up winning that game. He was having a heck of a game, and when he went down, the Florida offense completely stalled out, minus that one drive towards the end of the game. If DJ Lagway is playing, I could very see this being settled by only about 10 or 12 points. So I look for Florida to cover the spread there. Most years, I'd say Ohio State needs to watch out for Purdue, but this is the worst Purdue team I think I've ever seen. So I don't think they need to be worried about them. Uh, I tell you something that's surprising. Iowa State, we saw how they lost last week to Texas Tech, but Texas Tech is a pretty good team. Kansas has been terrible this year. Kansas has 6 losses. They're 1 loss away from bowl ineligibility. And Iowa State's only favored by 3 against Kansas. That'll definitely be a good one to watch. That's going on 2:30 on FS1. Uh, Florida State versus Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to end up winning by. Is it possible to win by 70? I think they're going to win by 70. But yeah, going back to BYU versus Utah, the only chance Utah has at keeping that game close is their defense. If their defense can stop BYU's offense, then I think they have a shot. But Utah isn't going to win it with their offense. No chance. Like they make OU's offense look like the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs.
I tend to agree with you, Chris. I do. Sooner Pocket Podcast. I'm Sam Knight here with Chris Knight. Remember the OU game this week at Missouri, 6:45 p.m. Central Time, on the SEC Network. Make sure to check out www.soonerpocket.com. Again, lots of great pregame and postgame content, as well as links to the YouTube channel Chris maintains for us. Chris, it's been fun. Let's look forward to a good week of football. Hopefully an OU win. Maybe we can come back next week a little more optimistic and maybe talking about bowl options for the Sooners. We'll see. Nice. Until then, everybody stay safe, have a good week, and Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.